Good morning. Let's start the meeting for Wednesday, the 21st, 15. Stand.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chairman, before we start, we have a letter and a policy banning Mr. Wright from the county buildings. This letter was sent to Mr. Wright, given to his son, and it is supported by legal counsel. And I would like to ask that we invite Mr. Wright to leave the premises immediately.
I guess I'd go for Corey and Brenda, what you have to say on this. Is the ban in effect, or?
Okay. And I don't have the letter in front of me, Mr. Chairman, but.
I'm prepared.
Let me see it. So the letter says that Mr. Wright may come to the county building to conduct business if he's called, and the department head makes an appointment with the department head. The department head is responsible for escorting him in and out. Now, so the question would be, who is the department head? Does that include county commissioner? So I'm assuming somebody in the building has invited or allowed Mr. Wright to attend. That'd be the first question.
Well, I have no problem if it's, if everything else is okay, and if, you definitely have to toe the line, Mr. Wright.
So, Mr. Chairman, did you invite him, or are you allowing him to?
I might allow him to stay, yeah.
Okay, so let me make a suggestion. So, this issue came up this morning before the meeting. I wasn't made aware of it. So I was looking at Robert's Rules of Order, which is how I understand our proceedings are governed. Is that accurate?
Yes.
So, within a committee, the chairman has the authority for the decorum and discipline of a gathering, of a meeting like this. And if you look at Robert's rules specifically, with the responsibilities of the chairman and disciplinary proceedings, whether for a member or a non-member, meaning a member of the commission or a non-member of the commission who's still a member of the public, if the non-member is breaching order, as in disrupting, etc., the chairman can either silence the person or ask the person to be removed. If the chairman decides not to do that, the other members of the commission can raise a question of privilege, and that's a motion that takes precedence over everything except a motion to adjourn. And be a question of privilege. Hypothetically, Mr. Wright is being disruptive, ask him to be removed. If the chairman can rule it out of order, the chairman cannot entertain it. That decision by the chairman is appealable by the members of the commission. And if the majority vote, as in the other two, say, I appeal the decision of the chair and vote against you, that Mr. Wright does need to be removed, then that would be the ruling from the commission and he'd be removed. In other words, the chairman's responsible for discipline. If the chairman doesn't exercise it or disagrees, he can still be overvoted by the other two members of the commission, at which point the decision of the commission would be to exclude Mr. Wright, and someone would probably, some responsible individual would escort Mr. Wright out. Can only escort him out the front door, unless there's a further violation, a disruption here that causes him to be excluded wouldn't be cause for further charges unless other things happen that would cause those charges. Is that would be the procedure that Roberts says that a committee of this type would use to govern discipline in a public hearing. So what I would recommend is if Mr. Wright is behaving himself and is here at the invitation of the chairman, then he'd be allowed to attend. If he becomes disruptive, or if the other members of the commission want to vote and raise a question of privilege and override the chairman, they could do that. If it's a tie vote, and since we only have 2 commissioners right now, the chairman is not overridden. It has to be, if a tie goes to the chairman, it has to be a majority to override the chairman. Is that helpful at all?
Yeah, you heard everything that Mr.
Yes, I
Slaughter
heard.
said.
And I've got 3 other appointments I have here in the courthouse, taxes and you name it, after this. So I am involved in trying to get my things straightened up from the time that I have been banned from being here. But I do have one thing I'd like to say right now, if I can.
Okay, real quick, and then that's it.
This banding order that we've read right here, you did not vote for it to start with. You being the chairperson, would you make a proposal to remove this banding order because it's illegal, unconstitutional, 110 violations of my constitutional rights right here?
Okay, well, I'll take that into consideration.
Thank you.
And now, you understood everything, no
Yes.
disruptions,
Yes,
okay?
I do know
I
how.
got a lot of backup back there in the back row.
Hallelujah.
Okay, and with that, are you ready to proceed, or do you want to?
Do you want to come up and sit up here too? We gotta see if she can call me now. Yeah. I have 2 extra copies that I can, I'll leave right here if somebody wants
Good
it.
morning, Captain Kaufman and Larson, this is Cynthia.
Hey Cynthia, this is Brenda Ludwig, I'm calling for Jane. She's waiting for my phone call.
Okay, Brenda, and, well, I'm sorry, what's your last name?
Ludwig,
Reddick?
Ludwig.
Redwick. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Okay, one moment, Miss Ludwig. Thank you. This is Jay.
Hi Jane. Can you hear us?
Yep.
Okay, we're in here and I've got Corey here and I've got Commissioner Slivka and Commissioner Obert.
Okay, great.
Okay.
For the record, before we start, this was scheduled for 2 in the afternoon, and conflicts with both the sheriff and Corey. We changed it, and we did get it posted so that it was for 9 this morning instead, so I just want to clarify that so everybody knows. And Corey, I'll let you go ahead and
Okay.
start.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So, this document that you have before you reflects not only the first draft that I had a week ago, but your direction to make some edits and corrections, as well as there were a number of things that I told you at that meeting that I hadn't reviewed with the sheriff's council yet. We've been able to do that, and so the attorneys for both sides agree on the language you have before you, and the sheriff agrees on it as well. So I'll just run briefly through it, and I'll just basically focus, I'll cover the terms, but I'll basically focus on things that are different from what we looked at last week. So the settlement agreement still has the same whereas clauses at the beginning, and again, this is just kind of reciting the commission's authority under the statute. Going down to bottom of page 2. Whereas the Broadwater County Sheriff's Office retained outside counsel for this lawsuit. We both had various extraneous words we wanted in there, and we agreed it was best to just dump all the extraneous words. Whereas the parties, the final clause there, whereas the parties agreed on December 22nd, 2014 to resolve this matter, I had put in principle, and and really what we had on the 22nd was an agreement subject to final details of drafting, so I eliminated the in principle portion. On the top of page 3, I added, though at the end of that whereas clauses, I just added that the hearing was in fact vacated on January 9th. The judge issued an order vacating the January 16th hearing until we, the parties, move forward. So, looking at page 3, the commitments. We cut a lot of extra stuff out of here, and I think it was for the better. So, paragraph 1A, the sheriff's base pay, that didn't change. Sub B, a uniform amount of base salary for the other elected officials as provided by section Montana Code Annotated section 7-4-2503. If you recall, before I had this long list of all these other things the commission could do for the treasurer and the clerk and recorder and all this stuff. Those weren't really part of the agreement. Those are just reciting what you can do anyway under law. So rather than recite that whole section of statute, we just put as provided by section 2503. So we agree that for the purposes of this agreement and for the actions going forward, the base pay for all these county employees or county elected officials would be that uniform $46,000. Then from there, there are provisions in statute that had some additional amounts for different offices. This agreement doesn't take away your authority to do that. It just makes it clear we're all starting with that base pay of equal $46,000. County Commissioners, paragraph 2, this is based on the county commissioners in this section of the law receive an adjusted part-time salary based on the salary of the clerk and recorder. So here I listed what the new adjusted base pay would be, which is the part-time salary based on the clerk and recorder, $29,900, plus the statute says there's another $2,000 for the county commissioners, for the total salary of $31,906. So this is the new substantive number in this agreement that I just got in the last couple of days. Then the paragraph 3 with the deputies' wages, that's no change from last week. Paragraph 4 is no change from last week. Paragraph 5, the coroner payment is the same as last week. Paragraph 6, what I did was clarified, we talked about all those different boxes of employees, and so I clarified what that is. So non-sworn, paragraph 6, non-sworn Broadwater County Sheriff's Office employees and county employees who are not elected officials will receive that immediate 56-cent per hour raise. The second sentence of this, I drafted because I wasn't clear on the exact amounts for the deputies of the elected officials, and it wasn't necessary for this agreement. So I put in the second sentence, the raises for county employees shall not cause any of the deputies to the elected officials to receive compensation exceeding 90% of the elected officials' compensation as required by law. So the law says for a deputy, say a deputy clerk of court, cannot receive over 90% of her boss's salary. So I just put that limit in there, and then the county commission will need to make that adjustment based on the adjustments of the elected officials. Paragraph 7 is the same. Paragraph 8 is the same. Paragraph 9, so the sheriff agreed to not ask for the outside accountant to do the calculation if we can do the calculation and agree on it. So this was language proposed by the sheriff's office. The county will prepare the salary calculations for BCSO, which is the sheriff's office, within 10 days of the execution of this agreement. If the calculations are not acceptable to the parties, the county shall hire a mutually approved independent accountant to calculate the wages for the sworn personnel. So this is one that the commission needs to look at because it's different than what I presented last week. What I had said was let's just eliminate that outside accountant altogether, and they responded with, that's fine, let's eliminate that outside person so long as we can actually get the calculation correct and we all agree on it. If we don't agree, then let's not unwind the whole thing, let's agree to that. So, paragraph 10.
Can I ask a question about
Yes.
9? It needs to be a substantive, not acceptable, correct? It can't just be, I don't like this.
It can't be, well, we decided we want more. it would need to be a good faith disagreement over the calculations themselves. And really what it's gonna come down to is the longevity, because everything else is already laid out in the agreement right here before us. So it's gonna come down to the longevity calculations. So. Paragraph 10 is also the same with the exception of the very end. So the sheriff's office agrees to dismiss with prejudice all the charges. Well, so then the recommendation is to add, once the amended budget reflecting the salaries and calculations set out above is duly and legally adopted, which is a normal thing you would do in a civil lawsuit. You'd say, yeah, we'll agree to dismiss once you've completed the correction that we've asked for. So, or the additional action we've asked for. So the idea of paragraph 10 is that all this court action would be stayed once the calculations, the salaries and the amended budget are adopted, then it would be dismissed with prejudice. Paragraph 11, there's a change to the last sentence of paragraph 11. So both parties agree to waive any and all claims against the other that relate in any way to this case. The sheriff's attorney asked for this language. This waiver does not include any claims for back wages by individual employees. And you'll see this again in paragraph 15. The reason, initially I was skeptical of this. The reason that she's recommending it is because this lawsuit is between the sheriff's office and the county commissioners, and not necessarily the individuals within the sheriff's office who may have individual back wage claims. I can't imagine that they do, because they've been getting paid in excess of the statute. However, there would be a concern over the sheriff's ability, or legal authority, I should say, to settle potential individual claims from individual deputies. Does that make sense? Jane, do you want to elaborate on that at all?
Well, I think you explained it just right. That our only concern was that because the individual deputies are not parties to the current lawsuit, that we cannot bind them to the waivers.
They're parties in their official capacity, they're not parties in their individual capacity. And if they were seeking a back wage, it would be in their individual capacity for money that they felt was owed them personally, not necessarily on behalf of all the rest of the deputies. Does that make sense at all? This is why lawyers, this is kind of,
Right.
are there any questions on that one? Because this is one that I think is, at least, I want to make sure you're comfortable with this and you understand this.
I'm good with it.
Okay. So paragraph 12, paying the attorney's fees. As you know, I had a recommendation to try some other things here. We went back and forth in the last week between myself and the sheriff's attorney on some other ways that we could deal with attorney's fees, and they weren't necessarily interested in those. So unless the commission is directing to relook that issue, I think we need to go with, this was what you agreed to on December 22nd. I personally think this is part of the deal that's not a good part of it. However, it's your decision, it's the commission's decision, it's all I can do is advise, so.
And we agreed to that, so.
Okay.
It was a 2-1 vote, I want that on the record.
So paragraph 13. This is specifically focused on if there's any other possible case out there not related to the budget and the wage issue. This agreement can't pull in all other possible cases and settle them. This is only the matter of the budget, the wage issue that was from the October budget resolution and the lawsuit that followed that. Paragraph 14, the Teamsters Union Local Number 2 needs to approve this, that their approval is required for this to really be effective. So I provided this document to the Teamsters representative, Erin Foley. She wasn't able to be here this morning. Because of the back and forth editing, I got it to her a couple days later than I wanted to. So I'll talk about that at the end as far as recommendations of when we need to see that approval. Paragraph 15 is almost redundant with paragraph 11, but I included it, some slight changes just in terms of, let's say there's a new group of county commissioners in a couple of years, and there's a new sheriff someday. Those future officers are still bound by this settlement. We can't come back and say, well, it wasn't me that voted on it, so I'm not gonna do it. And then paragraph 16, this agreement plus the attachments, which we'll talk about in a second, are the entirety of the agreement. There's no side conversations that are gonna be roped in. It has to be this document that's written plus the attachments, and that's the agreement. That's paragraph 16. So then the approval just says, the undersigned individuals attest they have the authority to direct the parties to this matter and have voluntarily agreed to settle the above captioned matter according to the terms contained herein and in the attached exhibits. So you're attesting, yes, I am the lawful county commissioners and I have the authority to do this, and she's attesting, I am the lawful sheriff and I have the authority to do this. And I put signature lines. And then the list of exhibits that we would attach. One is the Broadwater County Sheriff's Office salary schedule. And this will be not just what's on page 3 and 4 of this agreement that gives the base, but it'll be the full calculations of all their longevity and all that.
Oh, okay.
So, number 2 attached
It'll
exhibit.
come from the one that we decided on the 22nd.
Yes,
You
it's the
said
one that
22nd.
needs to be done after your decision today. So then the second attachment would be the Teamsters approval letter. But attachment number 3 would be the sheriff's office motion to dismiss. And then number 4 would be the legal fees and costs, the full roundup of that. And there we have it.
Is all
Okay.
as of today's date.
Okay, well, there's gonna be likely a little bit more, for one thing, drafting the motion to dismiss and agreeing and evaluating this salary calculation, so. So what the sheriff just handed me is a warrant for, dated today, or is it yesterday? Today,
Okay.
$17,996.71, so we're at 18,000 at this point. And I expected, by the time this is all said and done, we're gonna be at the 20,000 mark, based on where we are right now, so. At or close to. That's the agreement. My recommendation of what we do from here is, one, that we actually sign it today. And I think, as I say sometimes, the good idea machine at some point needs to be turned off, and I think this is the point where we need to turn it off. We need to complete the agreement we've got. That will allow us to then move forward with calculating all the wages. That's not a moving target at this point, it's gonna be clear. And so, I recommend that if it can be done by Monday, that Monday we do a review of the, kind of the first draft of what those are. Then if there's a disagreement, that gives us several days to work those issues out before we run into a 10-day mark and there's concern that we're back to the same thing. And then I asked for the Teamsters. I told Aaron, I said, look, we need to get the Teamsters letter no later than Wednesday the 28th. And that would really probably be the last of those documents that we need to add. So at that point, if we get the agreed upon salaries, if we get the motion to dismiss, we get the Teamsters approval letter, and we get the final legal bill, that would be all the attachments to the agreement. If we could get that done by a week from today, then number one, the commission can proceed to pay that raise that's hanging out there in time for the February payroll. I don't know if the commission has to wait till Wednesday. Obviously, you need to notice it up, and you do it Monday if you want to. And then I think that it would be time to schedule the amended budget process. This agreement's going to require the commission to do an amended budget process because there are clearly some numbers in here that were not part of the last budget cycle. So for the elected officials' wage resolution, for the budget, for how all this is gonna be covered, we'd have to do an amended budget process. And I think that's about it, so. I ran through a lot of stuff fast. Any questions, or Brenda, do you wanna add anything? Jane, do you wanna add anything?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, Ms. Mercer, can I call you Jane?
You bet.
Okay, you heard everything there. Have you any more comments?
No, I think Corey explained it exactly how he and I have been talking about it, negotiating it. I don't have anything to add to that. I think he explained it perfectly.
Okay, well, it sounds like we're rolling along here then. So,
Do you want to add anything?
No, I think you answered it quite clearly.
Any questions?
Doug, you want these signing now? Is that?
Preferably, it might make sense to take public comment before signature. I think a vote and a signature. And if Commissioner Gravely is not here, then we would just need to catch up to her and get a signature at some point. Just because she's not here at this meeting doesn't mean she shouldn't sign this. She should still sign this. So,
No, you said public comment. You want public comment now?
Yeah.
I'll open up for.
I think there's a lot of various interpretations out there about the procedure, but generally, I mean, if, before the commission takes action on something, asking for public comment, providing for public comment is probably a good practice, so long as it doesn't turn into an all-day argument session.
Right, so as you heard what Corey said, we'll go with some public comment, and we'll keep them as short as you can. If it gets going on too long, I might stop you. So at this point, I'll open up for public comment. Cheryl?
On item 10 on page 5, it says that the sheriff's office agrees to dismiss with prejudice. I don't understand what that means with prejudice.
In a lawsuit, if you dismiss something with prejudice, that means you can't come back and restart the case again. If it's the same parties and it's the same issue. If it's without prejudice, then a lot of times people may start a lawsuit and they realize they need to gather more information, and so they dismiss it, and then they can spend a little more time getting more information, then come back and refile it. That would be without prejudice. But if it's with prejudice, then it can't be refiled.
Okay, thanks.
Any other? Go ahead, John.
Corey, how are you gonna deal with the peace officers and other employees of the sheriff's department that are no longer here, that are gone? How are you gonna deal with them the same as you would in comparison to the ones that are still here?
As far as this deal, that if they're no longer employees here, then they're not getting any benefits on this, so they wouldn't be affected by it.
Well, didn't they lose their pay?
Oh, well, so,
Excuse me for 1 second, let me finish my thought. I'm concerned about, can they sue us for not getting their pay?
well, if you recall, we added the language in there that, at Ms. Merson's suggestion, that individuals that may have some kind of back wage claim out there they're not kicked out of being able to do that by this settlement. So there could be somebody in that category of a former deputy who could, this agreement does not prevent them from coming and seeking those back wages. I can tell you though that I think it's pretty unlikely that they're gonna succeed, because this agreement, what's been governing the wages for deputies for the past 2 cycles of the collective bargaining agreement has been paying them more than the law allows. So I really don't see how they're gonna be able to come back and say we should have paid them more.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, yeah.
Wayne Hall. I'm wondering, now, this deal in December where you guys voted to pay this, are you gonna have to vote again? Or what is the deal? I don't understand how that when you voted 2-1, to pay this or to accept this deal. Now, it looks like to me you're gonna have to vote again the way that he's talking. And that isn't right. I think one decision should be done instead of having voting twice and approving or disapproving. I just don't understand how this can be done lawfully.
Go ahead and answer.
Well, you're right that on December 22nd, the commission voted to agree to the deal that was discussed on that day. And then they said, subject to, working out the language. Well, I took over as county attorney, and there was almost nothing in writing that said, here's what the deal was. So I went and watched several hours of videos and chased down the details. And so in that process, I found a number of details that still needed to be finalized for the agreement to work. And there was also a couple things that were in the deal that, in the discussion on the 22nd, that both sides said, this doesn't make sense to do. For example, there was a talk of doing a 10-year audit for possible back wage claims against the sheriff, the county against the sheriff. And so I came back and recommended we need to not do this. I think that would kill the whole deal. The sheriff's office agreed to just reduce or eliminate the requirement that there be an outside accountant doing the calculation unless we can agree. Those are a couple examples. There were some other minor ones. So because some of the small details of the agreement are a little different from the 22nd, and because nobody really saw all in one document all the details of the agreement, I think it makes sense to not only come back and now the public has seen everything. So now you have an informed public who knows exactly what's being voted on. The commission is looking at the four corners of the agreement. I think it makes sense to vote on it and say this is the final agreement. Anytime you settle a lawsuit, the lawsuit is never just settled on the day that someone shakes hands. You always got to go through and agree on what that settlement is by putting it in writing, or else in a year we all come back and we argue over what we agreed to. And then the other big change that's happened since December 22nd is that we know the exact amount of the attorney's fees, and the attorney's fees are going to go higher than the 22nd. So for all those reasons, I recommended that the commission just err on the side of doing everything upfront and clearly by saying, here is the agreement in all its details, and we're going to vote on it again.
Sorry, problems this morning.
Yeah, Roger Halber. I feel like a Johnny-come-lately, as they say, but the origins of this lawsuit, were these issues brought before the commission, before the suit? Okay,
Yeah,
and so this suit just didn't come out of the blue?
no, it's been ongoing for quite a little while.
Okay. And just clarification, this is going to cost the taxpayers of this county over $20,000 in legal fees?
I'd say we're probably right around 20,000. I don't know that it'll be over, but it'll be in that neighborhood.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I do have to interject. The issues regarding this lawsuit were not brought to the entire commission prior to the filing of this lawsuit. They may have been brought to one commissioner, but it was not brought to the commission.
I recall meeting after meeting. In fact, it first
Mr.
started.
Chairman,
Oh,
Mr.
okay.
I recommend we don't re-engage in fighting this last war. That's what we're about to do. And the reason we're settling this is because there's clearly very strongly held opinions on both sides as to who did what and who shot John and all that stuff. And we can do that if we want to go down that road, but I don't think that's going to result in us moving from this point to everybody to the correction that we have. So that's my only. I'll shut up now.
No, maybe just give a quick read.
Good call.
Oh, yeah, I'll
What's
agree
done
with
is
that.
done, let's move forward and work together.
But what I want you to just give a quick brief update to Elaine here now, maybe.
So, Commissioner Gravely, that document, and these are the same, so you can just look at one of them if you want.
Okay.
That document is the agreement that, that is final and I'm presenting to the commission for approval. So what it has, I know last week I presented a draft, and there were a number of corrections that I had to make, and the commission had gave me some direction on a couple of issues. And then we also, I spent some time with the Ms. Merson, who's on the telephone here, the sheriff's attorney, working through some final details. So this agreement, plus some attachments that we'll have that are referenced on the last page, would be the full agreement to settle the lawsuit. The major changes, really, if you look on page 3, one of the things that I had included was along, and it'd be in the paragraph 1 sub B. Yeah, I had included a lot of language from the statute on all the different adjustments to a base pay for elected officials, the clerk of court, the justice of peace. I had everybody in there. And Jane suggested we eliminate that portion because that actually wasn't the subject of the settlement. That's just additional things that would adjust their base pay based on the powers the commission has under the statute. So instead, we just put the commission will pass a wage resolution which will include a uniform amount of base salary for the other elected officials as provided by that section of law. And within that section of law, then there's a lot more details, but it wasn't really necessary for this agreement. Actually, I omitted something very important the first time around. So one of the things that I did have also in this agreement was an agreement that the sheriff's office shall not obtain outside counsel, and the commission won't pay for it unless, and there were a number of things that the commission authorizes it, or the commission itself hires somebody, or basically the commission and the county attorney are running rampant and breaking the law, and the sheriff has to go through a number of steps. At the suggestion of the sheriff's attorney, I eliminated that, but advised them that I'm going to recommend to the commission that you direct me to draft a resolution that would be effective for all the county, including the sheriff's office, all the county government, and including the sheriff's office, saying that the commission won't pay for an outside counsel, and basically in substance the same stuff I recommended. And the reason why for the omission, which I think makes sense, is that wasn't part of the agreement on the December 22nd, and so this is to codify that agreement on the 22nd. However, if the commission adopts that resolution from whatever day you adopt it going forward, it will be binding on all the county departments, including the sheriff's office. So that was eliminated from this agreement.
What does the union say about this one?
So I gave it to the union rep, and I gave it to her a couple days later than I wanted to because of the back and forth of some edits we had to do. So I told them we need their approval, and I asked them to have that by next Wednesday, the 28th. And they're gonna visit, and they'll be visiting with me soon. But I did explain the two concerns I had with the union approval letter. One, that it said a one-time freeze of the Me Too clause. And what number one, I think everybody agrees, including them, that for the sworn personnel in the sheriff's office, their wage has to be tied to the sheriff. The non-sworn personnel, however, the Me Too clause tying them to other county employees wouldn't violate the statute. And so I think their intention had been that Me Too clause for the non-sworn personnel wasn't eliminated. So this agreement covers that, though, because this agreement includes a commission decision to implement that 56-cent per hour wage increase for the sheriff's office non-sworn personnel and for the other county employees who aren't otherwise covered, being tied to elected officials. So with that understanding, I think that they're likely going to be fine with it. The second thing that was in the union letter was that there would be an elected official wage salary set, and then there'd be an additional 56 cents per hour raise right after that for elected officials. As I understand where we are right now is that the commission is going to implement this agreement and set the elected officials' salaries at the base that's here. And then if the commission wants to do another 56 cent per hour raise, you would do that as part of the follow-on amended budget process, which you'll need to schedule. And if you don't want to do it, then you won't do it. But if you do want to do it, then it wouldn't be today when you sign the agreement, it would be when we do the amended budget process to implement this. Is that an accurate understanding?
I believe so.
Okay,
Yeah.
so,
Jamie, go ahead. And then after this, I think we'll close the public comment.
Good morning, Commissioners, Sheriff Ludwig, Attorney Swanson, members of the public. I'm Deputy Jamie Buck. I'm the Sergeant in charge of the Patrol Division. I'm also the acting union steward for the deputies. I was in discussion with Aaron Foley yesterday, the business agent for Union Local Number 2, based on her conversation with Corey. We understand the deadline of an answer by the 28th. Today is Wednesday. I will have the union deputies together. We'll review the agreement, the same agreement you're looking at now. And if need be, we'll bring Erin over before the 28th, have a meeting with her, and we'll have you those inputs rather sooner than later. So, no worries from the union side of the house. I looked at it in general last night. I didn't get into the fine details, but I learned a little bit more today. I don't anticipate any major stoppages, maybe just some clarification, which should move this forward quickly. Thank you.
Thank you.
and then the other thing that we talked about was the issue of the attorney's fees, and I had recommended, as you know, last week, a change in how, basically who paid for those. And the sheriff wasn't really agreeable to relook at that issue. So what I have here on paragraph 12, in paragraph 12 is the commission paying the attorney's fees out of the PIL funds. That was the discussion from December 22nd, and that was the commission's decision on that day. So with that, the last page, page 7, just shows the additional items that would be added to the agreement. One is an exhibit that would show the calculations for the sheriff's office salaries, and that would be, it would be what's already listed for the base in the agreement, plus the longevity calculations. And the sheriff's office has agreed to not require an outside accountant to do that, but if after 10 days of the county doing the calculations, we have a good faith disagreement over what that number should be, then they would ask for the outside person to actually do the calculation. The second exhibit would be the Teamsters approval letter. The third would be the sheriff's office drafted motion to dismiss. And then the fourth would be the full legal fees and costs, which I expect to be, I said 20,000 because we're at 18,000 now, and there's still some work to be done, so I expect it's gonna be around 20,000. And then the sheriff's office would file that that motion to dismiss once we've implemented the salary changes and once we've completed the amended budget process. And so there was an email where I recommended a timeline of, if we can sign this today, then we could do it, we can look at a first draft of the salaries for the sheriff's office next Monday. And the county could at any point really notice up a decision to implement the pay raise for the non-sworn personnel and the other county employees. If we can get that approval letter from the union by Wednesday the 28th, then this agreement could be done at that point, and then the county would need to set a timeline for the amended budget process. And I just ran through 100 things really fast, so if you have any questions on it.
Thank you.
Are there concerns from the commission regarding this whole document?
No, it's pretty much what we talked about last week.
Okay, 22nd. And last week, yeah. What do you want now, Corey?
I would recommend we sign 2 originals, and, then we can, then the commission would probably wanna make, give instructions to the financial folks to begin those calculations, and whenever the commission wants to notice up for the pay raise, and you're not necessarily acting to do it, you've already agreed to do it, you're just unfreezing it. So whenever you wanna make that, take that action, and then pending, as soon as we get the documents and the union approval and all that stuff done, then the commission could figure out a timeline for amend it. So if we could sign,
Do we have to make a motion?
yeah, you probably wanna make a motion to accept it and vote on it, and then you could sign, we could sign 2 originals, so we each have a copy, we each have the original.
Just for the record, on principle, I am opposed to paying attorney fees for any employee who did not follow MCA 742708. However, in the interest of getting back to a place of being able to get back to doing county business, I will move that aside from those, that disagreement, that we sign this agreement as it states.
Second motion.
Okay, second, any more discussion?
Can I have clarification?
You bet.
Can you just clarify what your motion is then exactly? Are
My
you saying?
motion is, despite the fact that there are elements in this agreement that I adamantly am opposed to, that I am still moving that we sign it based on the fact that it is still the right decision for the county.
So you're not suggesting to amend the agreement, I was worried that's
No,
what you
I'm
were doing.
not. No, I'm not. I did lose that vote on a 2-1 vote, and I honor the commission for what it has decided. But I still think we need to sign this agreement. We need to get back to doing county business, and we need to end these ridiculous lawsuits. Very few counties have elected officials suing their own counties. And Broadwater County has the unique distinction of having 2 in 2 years. It baffles me, but we need to sign this, we need to move forward, we need to sign the resolution, and then we need to put this to rest. We've got too much work to do. Too few hours in the day.
I agree.
Okay.
Can I ask a
Yeah,
question
you bet.
before you vote? So the sheriff and Jane, before they vote, are you approving this agreement and ready to sign?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Motion made and seconded, we had a discussion, we'll vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. It is passed. You have the papers ready?
So there's 2 right there, and they're all identical, so if you wanna sign those as the 2 originals, and then Sheriff Ludwig can sign them, and we'll be on fire.
I'd like to add, Corey, you did a good job. You did more here in this last week and a half that's been done than last year. I appreciate you getting this taken care of.
Thank you.
21st. Thank you. Hang on.
Thank you. Oops, 5. We're gonna, oh, good. I appreciate too, Corey, all the time you put into this. I know it's been a big project for a long time, and I appreciate your additional hours.
Well, it's an important project to get done.
Yes,
Excited about Peter.
willing to come in on the tail end of it. He came up to speed very quickly.
If there's nothing further than Commissioner Sipra, I would like to be excused.
Okay with you, Corey, or
Yes,
everything?
yes. Well, I'll give the original to the sheriff of your guys' document, and we'll be good to go. Thanks, Jane.
Yeah.
Great, thank you very much.
And thank you.
Thank you.
You sure had it figured on time, Corey. Just about exact.
Wow. So that's your signature? All right.
He must be a doctor.
That's for you. Do you want to keep the original, or you want me to keep it?
Why don't you keep it?
I mean, eventually we'll want to file this when we do it with the motion to dismiss, we'll file this as a.
And you handle all that part.
Final Jerry.
Corey, we should get a copy for the commission files, but we don't need an original.
I do have another matter dealing with Teamsters Insurance that would love to visit with you maybe for 10 minutes sometime today, and it needs to be closed session because it deals with possible litigation against a non-public entity, and it also deals with some personnel issues, but it'd be very short. But we'd love to have some time today, about 10 minutes of your time.
How would it be if we, I think we're convening at 1:30, what if we did like at 1:20? You say 10 minutes would be long enough.
I think so.
And this would be a closed door type?
It would need to be.
Okay.
And I mean, the issue is about the Teamsters insurance, we need to pay it. There were some outstanding issues at the end of December regarding some employees that may have other insurance. And so that was all on hold. I'm ready to proceed and give you a recommendation, but in doing that, some of my legal analysis is definitely stuff that would be privileged, that would, in the event we have to litigate it, would something I wouldn't want to hand out to the other parties, but it'll be short.
Okay, and it sounds okay, it's 1:20 then?
Hopefully simple
Okay.
too.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Corey.
Corey.
And thanks again for a great job.
Thank you.
It didn't take you long to get a stack of papers here.
What's that?
It sure didn't take you long to get a big stack of papers.
No, I inherited most of these. I didn't create most of them.
Okay, well, is there any public comment? General public comment? Comment before was just on that one issue. No, I got too many papers here, I can't even find my. Commissioner update?
know. Tonight, there's supposed to be a fire board meeting, and they called last night and they're gonna cancel. They don't have a quorum for tonight, so they've canceled that. Tomorrow is a Rocky Mountain Development Board meeting, and we're gonna do a 6 months review of the new executive director.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's my update.
That'll be excellent.
Yeah, she's doing a good job, I think. I mean, she came here with those other ladies and talked to us, and she went to the hospital and talked to those guys, and we got it going, so I think very good.
Yes. She was also at the senior center last week with those same gals, so that was good.
Laura?
I had Agency on Aging last week, and what we discussed mostly was our relationship with Rocky. Are we a sister agency? What are the benefits of staying with Rocky? So we'll be doing a bit more on that. We also looked at legislation that's coming, and we'll have testimony on that here in about 2 weeks. LEPC was this week, and we kind of debriefed the Yellowstone pipeline training. It was a good meeting. And then Chamber of Commerce hosted the first annual Ag Appreciation Dinner. Bob was there. And Taylor Brown spoke, and he was excellent. His message was positive and strong, and it was really refreshing. He did fantastic. So that's about it.
Okay, I attended the Alcorn Restoration meeting in Hamlin, LEPC Conservation meeting. Also attended the Ag dinner, and we testified in the Capitol on, I forget what it was, Thursday, I believe now, on that TSEC grant for the bridges. And on that Muddy Lane, last week we read a report of the ice and possible flooding. Went over there, and then I talked with the landowner, and he had dammed it earlier, last fall or whatever, and apparently muskrats had burrowed around the sides, and water was going in. So anyway, when I talked to him, he thought he already had it remedied. He just hauled some more fill in, dammed it. And then there was another ditch that was coming down through the neighbor's property, and they just left them in their dams, and that was kicking the water off even more so. And so I checked the next morning, and everything was okay. It's just one of those, I don't know if you noticed down here by the Lightning Barn, the same thing. There's about 20 acres out there froze over, But the water was right to the road, and it was going underneath the culvert and down to the creek.
Franklin, before you move on, you skipped Montana a minute. Were you gonna go back to that?
Yeah, I guess, anybody got anything for Montana minute?
I do.
Go ahead.
All right. Just a couple weeks ago, a gentleman walked into the hospital and made a statement that he was really proud of this community on what we'd done to save our hospital, and dropped a $5,000 check as a donation to the hospital. So upon hearing about this, one of our board members said, you know what? If that local business person can do that, so can I. So he also wrote a $5,000 donation check to the hospital and put out a challenge to the community to match it. Dollar for dollar, it will be matched. And it's called the Story of Love Challenge. And it's really, one of the things the business person said is, this is indeed paradise. We're lucky to live here. So the hospital has, from the community, $3,300 so far. And again, the goal is $5,000, and that is up until sometime in February. So I just wanted to share the Story of Love Challenge with you. It's kind of a nice story.
I like that. Well, I'd like to report on the high school teams this weekend. The girls won both games, the boys won both games, and the wrestling, where'd Brian go?
Don't you step down.
And the wrestling team did very well, so they did well.
Okay. think that ag dinner that was put on was well attended and good meal. It was a great occasion.
That's what Bob said, he said it's great.
Bob's the luckiest person I know on drawings.
Somebody else said that too.
Yes. Anyway, I guess we'll move in on public hearing on these resolutions.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman, did they get advertised? I didn't see a legal ad for the public hearing.
It was on the agenda. I don't know about, it had been on before.
I think we have to do a legal, a certified legal statement also.
We do, yeah.
Okay, well, we'll get Debbie or somebody to put in the legal advertising there.
And we're
At
too
that
late
point.
for this paper, obviously.
What's that?
We're too late for the paper this week.
So will this actually be tabled for probably about
2 weeks.
2 weeks or so, yeah.
And it really can't be tabled. It needs to be re-added to the agenda, re-advertised.
Yeah. Okay, we're way ahead of schedule. Is anybody from the trust board going to be here, or can we just go ahead and,
No, nobody's gonna be here. We can go ahead and answer their letter that's in the mail today.
oh, this one here. Who's signature that, you know?
Dana?
Oh, okay. I couldn't figure out who it was.
You Rousers do fancy signatures.
Let's see.
We should probably vote on something to increase credit or add credit to a department before signing it.
This one that I'm doing?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I'll make a motion that we sign the credit app for Montana Peterbilt LLC for the road department.
I'll second.
Okay, move to second, we extend this for the credit, right here for the road department. All in favor?
Right.
Aye. I'm not gonna put my social security number on. The county has a federal tax ID number. It should go on there.
Yours.
Are those the same?
Yes, this is from the Broward County Trust Board, January 2015. The Broward Trust balance of First Premier is above the threshold amount. The Broward County Trust Board members voted on January 8, 2015 to transfer $100,000 from that account to the Trust Board County account as soon as possible. The Broward Trust Board requests that the Broward County Commissioners make this request immediately. Respectfully, Virgil Bakley, Trust Board Chair.
I will move that we proceed.
I'll second the motion.
Motion moved. We second that we take care of this for the trust board. All All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's passed. Mail items, here's,
Again, before we sign anything, we should have a vote, a second, and a approval.
This one hasn't been? I'll make a motion to approve claims in the amount of
is that the 157?
$48,013.93.
Second motion?
Move and second, we paid claims at 48,000, so much.
$13.93.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I apologize, I thought these are, yeah, I'm just supposed to decide.
Yeah, these need to be
Here's-
shared with the public, so that they are aware too before we sign anything.
There's for payroll, $157,543.82.
Would you say that again, please?
$157,543.82.
I'll make a motion that we approve payroll in the amount of $157,543.82.
Second.
Move said we pay payroll at $157,000. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This one here. It's just,
You're the only one that signs payroll.
no,
No, you just,
just sign it anywhere there.
Mhm.
Okay. Where the amount is. Just need to sign it here.
This one needs to be signed.
we did.
You
Oh,
did.
Franklin.
Here's this is that bill from the BLM, and I call them, and they send everything, but it looks like there's still a question. I give everything to Tammy there. But you look at it, I don't know, Josh.
What does the
Good.
note say, Franklin?
Well, that's on that, it should be for those tower sites, I believe.
Tammy's got a note here. I'm not sure how to handle this. According to Ashley, Brenda Ludwig filled out the inventory certification, and this is for Montana Internet. You need to look at the contract you have with Montana Internet. This is late, it's also getting fees.
Did you bring the contract so we can look it over?
Yeah, I don't have a contract.
It's in the commissioner's office. We'll need that to know how to proceed on this, but they haven't been charged before because they've been under contract with us. If that contract is being overlooked, Montana Internet needs to know it, and we need to know it before these late charges continue to pile up.
Right. Maybe you could get that and have it here for,
Well, I'll take it to Debbie, then have her find the contract.
She's not our secretary, Franklin, that's your
Well.
job. She has a full-time job.
Okay, go ahead.
And we
You can do
tasked,
it then.
no, Franklin, you took over the TV district. This is your job as chairman.
I did take over the TV district.
You did, and you made a comment about it the other week.
The
You
thing I
can't,
did was make sure that the channels were working right. Here's a letter Commissioners. I have served on the Broad Arc County Weed Board for several years. As of January 7, 2015, I resigned my position on the Weed Board. I have enjoyed working with Scott and all the Broad Arc County Weed Board members. Sincerely, Dan Place.
It's a shame to lose him.
What's that?
It's a shame to lose him.
Yeah,
He has some good knowledge.
especially on chemical.
That should come back down here for Ann for records, all the mail should. I'll give it to Nicole.
Four Seasons. Dear Commissioners, Four Seasons is interested in continuing service in your junk vehicle program. We're submitting this proposal pursuant to your letter of December 15, 2014, terminating our present contract effective 30 days from your letter of December 15. Four Seasons will perform according to the requirements of our current contract and any requirements of the state of Montana Department of Environmental Quality. We submit the following rates for your consideration. Vehicles within the limits of the city of Townsend, pickup and deliver vehicles without fluids to the transfer station, 75. Pick up and deliver vehicles with fluids to the transfer station, 107. After removing and properly disposing of all fluids, $175. Vehicles within Broad Arc County but outside the city limits of Townsend, pick up and deliver vehicles without fluids to the transfer station, 150. Pick up and deliver vehicles with fluids to the transfer station after removing and properly disposing of all fluids is 250. Your consideration of this proposal is sincerely appreciated.
Is that the only one we got?
The only one I've seen.
The legal process, when we do have something put out to bid or a letter of opportunity put out, we have a deadline date, and then everything is open together at the same time, so we can compare at the same time.
I never see, was there a deadline date? I never see it.
And you should actually have followed up on that before reading that letter. Tammy's in charge of junk vehicles, so you want to follow up with her.
Okay.
Otherwise, there's an unfair advantage.
This is just a letter from the Bureau that, no, I'm not gonna read it all, but just that there were some parcels of reclamation land available for the city of Townsend, Broad Arc County. There's a letter here saying it could take up to 2 years to process. So if anybody wants to read it over. From Bureau of Land Management. I'll just read the first paragraph here, and if anybody's interested, they can go ahead and read it through. Several pages. The Bureau of Land Management, BLM, field office is in the initial stage of identifying issues in the Park, Gallatin, and Broad Arc County South Planning Area, and is inviting the public to submit scoping comments. The planning area consists of approximately 32,809 acres of public land administered by BLM, as shown on the enclosed map. The BLM intends to complete land health assessments in the Park, Gallatin, and Broad Arc County South Planning Area in the summer and fall of 2015 with completion of environmental assessment to follow. DA will evaluate various resource issues and develop a range of management actions to address this issue. To date, the preliminary issue doesn't include, we have some different things here, so if anybody wants to read that and make a comment. I think that's probably been in the papers too, I believe.
You don't need the envelopes, do you? We have quite a few of those. We should probably have an item on the agenda to approve those.
That's true.
For journal entries, okay, I'll make a list. Here's from the Oregon DUI Task Force. What it is, this is, it says, evidently, we gotta sign it, and post date back is referred to in our 5/27 agenda and the 5/27 minutes. See where schedule and update and everything. Need a motion to sign on that.
We don't need a motion on that one, and that's why the minutes are attached. We already did. That's the result of an email that we received this week from the DUI Task Force. MDT has misplaced theirs. They needed another copy. Upon trying to find it, it appears this is one of the files that is missing from the commission office. So we need to sign another one so we have a copy. I did find the minutes in the agenda, so everything's been done appropriately.
Do we need a motion or can we just sign?
We can just sign, because again, the minutes already state we made a motion. It's already agended. We just need to catch up on a file that has walked out of the courthouse.
I'll sign it.
And post-dated, remember? It needs to be post-dated to the,
5/27.
yeah, please.
You'll have to
That's all right, you can just cross it out.
post date here. Here's from,
Do you need that in?
our agreement with,
Okay.
one that's a use for any extension.
I think we need a motion on this. Maybe go with this.
This just shows that this,
I don't know why that didn't file.
Stewart Title Company, everybody paid the taxes on this property, and I think it's just a copy of sent to Doug.
I think some of our mail from last week got put in our mailbox. It needed to be taken downstairs so it could be filed. I think that's the case with both of these, unless that's a journal entry.
No.
Yeah, that looks like a journal.
in the services for the ambulance building, water and sewer,
Mhm.
off the pill.
Also move.
I will second.
Second, we take the 6480 out of pill for the water and service garbage for the ambulance building. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed this.
I don't need those. I will put those in the pile to go downstairs. They should be taken to the commissioner's office. And they're not needed for the records.
This is on that lease with the TV district in Hidden Hollow Ranch. And we put a note here that commissioner reviewed after 5 years, he increase the, save in the contract.
That's again 5 years.
Apparently so. February 1st, you get payment, on time. I don't think all we do is probably just
Maybe we need a motion on it.
make a motion, yeah. So I don't know if that'll draw up enough. I guess we do make a motion to continue as is, right, and then, I wonder, I guess I'll have to drop another, or can we just extend it right on this one here?
You need to read the note because it gives further instructions.
Well, that's what it says that we need to increase the lease, we gotta increase the lease payment. Is there something that's saying we increase it? Yes, it's here, correct. Beginning of commencement date 10 shall pay owner the sum of $1,500 per year as rent. Rent shall be payable on each anniversary of the commencement date in advance at owner's address or otherwise specified by owner and shall be prorated for any partial year at the early termination of this lease based upon the number of days in that year. CPI increase of the rent shall be adjusted for each renewal term by 12.5% over the current rent. So, there's no better have a motion to increase that by the 12.5%.
We need a new contract written reflecting the new cost. We should work with the landowner.
Maybe we should just
And it
have
should go
Cory drop the lease in.
I think we need to have Gary Flynn come first. Just see if there's anything, changes he wants to make.
Okay.
You wanna get a hold of
I'll
him and then,
contact him and
see if he'd come to a
for the
meeting?
next meeting or meeting.
Not the next meeting, but the
Right.
meeting after.
wonder if we have a minute, if I can ask a question about next week's meeting. On the agenda that was published, it states that the meeting for next Monday will be downstairs in the commissioner's room. We need to discuss that. The reason that we changed the meetings to the courtroom is for public safety, number one. If there is a major change made to the agenda, that's something that needs to go through the full commission. So, I guess I would like to bring that up for discussion. I'd like to know why the change was made and discuss it and follow the process if that is something that we want to proceed with.
Why was it changed?
Well, that's, the meeting place it always has been forever, and there never was any discussion or decision to move up here. Where, just like the last meeting, all of a sudden they needed, they had to have court here, and they're going through it all the time. The meeting place is down there, and it's next to our building, our office where we have all our information and stuff too. So without a doubt, that's the place to have it, and that's where I put it, and that's where it will be. It's up to me to make a decision on the meeting.
It actually isn't, so in the interest of discussion, I would like to propose that we continue with the status quo. If you would like to put that on the agenda, we certainly can have an official vote. But the thing is, again, our charge, almost number one, is public safety.
What do you mean, public safety? That's as good. What you talking about, public safety?
I let you finish, I'm gonna let you let me finish. The public safety issue is one where there simply is not enough room down there for as number of people that were showing up. We would have people in the hallway disrupting work downstairs. We had a couple of instances where employees, members of the public, reported being fearful down there because of the atmosphere and the fact that it is down in a hole and so far removed. That is why we moved up here, was for public safety. So, I guess if you want a motion, I certainly would move that we maintain the status quo until we follow the process to make any changes.
As chairman, it's up to me to run the meeting and have the meeting, and it's gonna be down in the original commissioner room. If there is some that comes up where there's a lot of public showing up on some issues, we can always move up to here if we have to.
Franklin, you need to support what you're saying with MCA, because I can support that you are opposed to MCA. Number one, the open meeting policy, which is in effect and is the guiding force of this commission, states that any major changes to the agenda need to be agended and voted on by the commission. We also have MCA and an email from Harold Gladdy that states clearly what the roles and responsibilities of the commission is, specifically the chairman, and that is to conduct these meetings. But you are not a dictator to the commission. It is not your right to tell us where we will have the meetings or to supersede or over enforce the open meeting policy. 742109 is one of the MCAs that basically says we have to have a presiding officer. But there is there's no additional opportunities you have to dictate over the rest of the commission. So this needs to be agended if you want to change the status quo, both per MCA and per the open meeting policy.
There was discussion come up here in the first place, and like I say, I'm running the meeting, it's gonna be down there. Any public comment? Go ahead.
Okay.
Sure.
My name is John Wright. Actually, Mr. Slivka, under the Constitution of the United States of America, you have the power to do this. State statutorily, those two have the power. Now, who's got the power? This is a constitutional county, and I pray tell you hold your ground. Thank you.
Dwayne, you have your hand up?
I'm wondering, Dwayne Holt, I'm wondering why, it was moved up here, other than regards of being able to push a button and have the cops right here. Nobody had ever been a problem. There has been no big problem. And all of a sudden, we gotta come up here to where we can have protection. I don't understand it. This is a public meeting, it shouldn't be public, or protected.
Elaine?
I do have something. You know, downstairs, more than once, it was so crowded, people were out and down the hall, and there just was not enough room. And that's why it was moved up here. It wasn't because for protection. It was for public safety because there wasn't enough room. And we still get lots of people at meetings.
Commissioner Slivka, I was excluded from jury duty in this very room because of a disability of mine. When I was an auditor with work comp, I spent 3 nights in a motel room and got formaldehyde poisoning from the carpet, and I've been in pain for 35 years since. I would prefer to have it up here for one basic reason. If there's a woman wearing perfume, I'm in trouble. I'm very sensitive to odors, and I can't, if there's a woman up here, I can move around. You see where everybody else is over here? I sit here for a purpose, because of perfumes and some deodorants. So I would, you know, this is just my preference. I'm just one of many in this room.
But
my
you're not the
preference-
only one that has that problem.
My preference is stay up here.